Thank you so much for joining me today. We are doing another sewing marathon for the Marathon Sewciety, and today we're sewing up my own pattern, the Willow Wristlet. So I have been having so much fun behind the scenes, seeing all the photos that everybody has posted. I'm loving seeing how everybody has adapted this pattern and really made it their own. So for mine today, I have used all cotton woven. I actually sewed together strips from a jelly roll and quilted them. So I'm going to show you how I did that. And I actually used foam for this one. So my other videos I have on my channel regularly are with vinyl or a clear one. So this is my first one with cotton woven. I really wanted to show you that you can make this with any materials. So I did the wristlet version, and I love it because it hangs at this angle, and I did put two D-rings in case I do want to use it as a crossbody ever. I do have the zipper, it's opening up, and I used a water resistant canvas on the inside and fold over elastic for the binding. I did not do the card slots for this one, but I'll link a tutorial below where I show you if you want to add them in. So thank you so much to the Marathon Sewciety for choosing my pattern for June, and for everyone that is tuning in. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up or a like. It really does help my channel grow, and I will have all the other sewists linked in the description. Please make sure that you're checking out everyone's video today. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Okay, so I have all my pieces laid out. I decided to try something different. I had this package of strips, kind of like a jelly roll, and these are actually from Walmart, and they are like quilting cotton woven, and I thought it would be really cool to piece them together and create this willow wristlet. So I'm going to show you a little bit how I do that after I show all the pieces in the introduction. So I have quilted them together, and I have already interfaced them with Sewfuse Plus and some foam. So this is a little bit different than what's written into the pattern, but patterns are like suggestions. So I have some other videos where I use the Decoville, or I show you how to do it with clear vinyl. So this willow wristlet, I thought it would be cool to show how you can make it with cotton woven and foam. So then I have my two zipper gusset pieces, also with the foam and Sewfuse Plus. The gusset piece, I have my wrist strap cut and interfaced with Sewfuse, as well as my two D-ring pieces. And for the inside, I decided not to do card slots. So I have my two zipper gusset pieces, my long gusset piece, and my two-piece A panels. These are all water-resistant canvas from Mormino. They don't have the PVC backing. It's like the PU coating. So we're gonna bind in this, so I am not leaving the edge raw, but I am not interfacing it either. And I also have my zipper tape, a size 5 zipper pull. The tape I think is from Mojo Sews from a while ago. And then I have my two 1/2-inch D-rings and a lobster claw tab. I'm making the wristlet version. I'm not going to do a crossbody strap for this video, but that is an option as well. Alright, so now as tools and materials, I am using this Tex 35 Fairy Floss thread from Wizardry Stitchery. It matches perfect on the outside. I may use a solid purple when I do my binding. So with that, I also have some fold over elastic from Bianni's that I am going to use to bind. I have a steam rubber stiletto combo, some snips, a ruler. I'm using a Microtex 8012 today, a lighter in case I need it, a chalk pencil, which I love using, and this blue water-soluble ink, as well as some clips. If there's anything else that I use, I'll let you know, but I think that's all I need to begin. Alright, so I have not cut out my pattern pieces because I'm actually going to sew some jelly roll strips together to kind of create my fabric. And so I'm just lining up the sides here. I'm not going to bother to clip them or anything. I'm just going to adjust them as I go. Make sure they're straight that way. And I thought this would be a fun way because I have other tutorials for the Willow Wristlet, but I haven't done something like this, and I thought it would give me a chance to be creative. And so I'm just sewing with my regular stitch length all the way down the side. And I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can see I'm just trying to straighten up the sides here since I don't have them clipped. It would probably be helpful if I had a walking foot, but I don't have one for this machine. So I just finished sewing all the way down, and now I'm going to add another strip here. I think I'm going to put the pink on the side of the purple. And so I'm just going to match up the long edge again, right sides together, and sew them up using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm pressing my seams open all the way down and flipping it over and pressing from the front side, making sure it's all straight. Here I have now cut out my pattern pieces from my long strip, and I am attaching the Sew Fuse Plus interfacing. Alright, so I have all my foam cut out, and because I'm sewing on a domestic, the foam is cut so it does not go into our seam allowance. And so if you were basting this, you would see those basting stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to quilt by top stitching along my seams here. And that is, I'm going to literally like quilt the foam in place. So I'm going to do that for both my piece A main panels, both my zipper panels. I'm going to again center this and go down the seam, as well as the gusset panel, and that will hold my foam in place and make it a lot easier as I am sewing. First thing that I'm going to start with is attaching my linings to my exterior. If you are doing the card slots, you're going to want to do that first, and I'll link my other videos that show you how to build those card slots if you need. The other thing that you may notice as I am working is that the foams look a little different. I have two different foams. I know one is fusible that I never fuse, and one I believe is sew-in. I'm a big proponent of using scraps, so if you notice that, that's why. So what we're going to do is take our lining and our exterior and put them wrong sides together. So this is the water-resistant canvas. I'm just like marking it with my finger because you can see like a little white line on the wrong side. So I just want to make sure I am getting the actual wrong side. So you're going to clip these and just baste them in place. And because I did the quilting on the exterior panel, whenever you quilt, it makes your fabric shrink up a little bit. So my lining might be slightly bigger. That's okay. I'm just going to trim it down at the end after I baste it into place. I figured that because I am quilting all the pieces, it should shrink down proportionately. And so I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to base stitch it probably only like 1/8 an inch away from the edge. Very, very minimal. And use my longest stitch length. Okay, so I have just finished basting my linings to the exterior panels and trimming down anything from the outside. So I'm going to set them aside for now because I'm going to work on my zipper gusset. So I have my 2 exterior pieces and my 2 linings. So I'm going to take one of my linings and I'm going to put it right side up. And I'm going to align my zipper right side up. If you have cut it exactly like the length you want to put your zipper pull, mine I cut a little bit longer, so I'm going to put my zipper pull on after. So I have my lining right side facing up, my zipper tape with my teeth up, and I'm going to take this to the machine and just base stitch along the edge here. Okay, so I have just basted my zipper in place. So now I'm going to take my exterior gusset and put it right side down so my zipper is sandwiched between the lining and the exterior. And I'm going to clip it in place. You might want to mark your centers and line up your centers if you want to be a little bit more precise. I just line up the pieces and don't stress it too much. It always seems to work out in the end. So now that I have it clipped in place, I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to switch to a zipper foot and sew at the full seam allowance along that edge. Okay, and while I'm at the machine, I have just sewed along the top here at my full seam allowance with the zipper foot. So now I'm going to fold open my lining and my exterior so that way they are wrong sides together. And I'm just going to top stitch this while I am still here at the sewing machine. It's a little bit tricky because of the foam. So I'm just taking my time trying to fold that back. I really want to make sure that I'm folding it back so it doesn't get stuck in the zipper when we open it. And then I am just going to top stitch it here. And I use my regular zipper foot and I just use like the inside hole. I line that up with the edge. Okay, so I have just top stitched the zipper, the top part in place. If you want, you can also base stitch along the sides. I'm going to do that after I test my zipper pull though, just to make sure that it works. I don't want to have to unpick anything. So we are going to repeat the same exact steps for the opposite side. Just added on the other side, top stitch down the top. I think the zipper pull is going to be fine, but now I'm going to add it. So if you haven't already done so, you want to open up your zipper, and I start with the right hand side because I'm right-handed, and I just put it on a tiny bit, try to balance it, and then use my pointer to push on. I couldn't get a grip of it for a second. And it seems like it is going to open and close just fine. I always check to make sure that my lining didn't move over too much where it will get stuck on that. That has definitely happened before, so I always check for that now. So now I am going to actually take it back to the machine and just do a basting stitch all the way around the 4 sides. It just helps hold it into place. So make sure you have your zipper pull on before you do that. Okay, so I have just base stitched all the way around the zipper, and now we have to add our D-ring tabs. So I have them here, and I originally drew a line down the center, but you could see the blue because this was so light. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold both the left and right sides to the center. So how I'm going to find the center is I'm actually going to iron it first so it creases, and then fold my edges in. And this is usually water soluble, but because I used the polyester backing, it did not come off. And then for the wristlet strap, we are doing the 4-fold method. I've already started ironing it. So I found the center this way, and then the left and the right sides in. Okay, so I have just folded the 2 D-rings and ironed them so there's the center crease. And because it's so small and it's so hot, the iron, I'm going to do the rest right here. So I'm just folding my side in to that center crease and clipping. And that's because I'm going to top stitch down each side. So what I'm going to do is top stitch down this right hand side, unclip them, then fold this other side in and top stitch down again. And I'm going to do that for both of the D-ring connectors. Just finished top stitching my D-ring connectors, and these are actually so long that you could cut them in half and use 1 strip for both D-rings. And even though I'm doing a wristlet only, I'm still adding 2 D-rings just so if I ever wanted to add a crossbody strap, I could. So what I'm going to do now is put the D-ring on and then top stitch next to it. So I'm folding that in half, and then I'm going to top stitch here across as close to the D-ring as possible. I actually put on a zipper foot so I could get even closer to the D-ring. And this is just so it doesn't slide around. You could also do a rivet if you want. And the raw edge here is to the center, but I'm not worried about it because so little of that D-ring is tab is gonna actually show on the bag that it's not really going to come undone or anything where you're gonna be able to see that inside. And I'm also not worried about it fraying because I put the Sew Fuse Plus on it. And again, so little of it is going to show in our final bag that it's not a big deal. Okay, so now I have my 2 D-ring connectors, and we are going to base them on. So we want it so the D-ring is pointing in, and again, like I said, you could cut these so then you'd have the two, just line up the edge. I'm doing it this way just to give myself a little bit more wiggle room. Usually I do like saving material, but in this instance I have plenty. So this is about, I usually eyeball this. This is about a 1/2 inch down. So, and if you notice, the D-ring connectors at a 1/2 inch fit perfectly over the zipper tape. That's another reason why I did that at that measurement. So I'm going to make sure that this side is also at that 1/2 inch and clip it. And now I'm going to take this to the machine and base stitch along the bottom of that zipper tab. Okay, so I have just base stitched the connectors on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim the zipper tape just a tiny bit. I still leave it a little bit longer. If you want to burn the edge so it doesn't fray, you can do that. And I'm also going to trim my D-ring connector down, and the same for this other side over here. So just keep it out of the, or it'll be in the seam allowance, give it a little bit of support, but not so much in the way. All right, so now we need to build the rest of our gusset. So we're going to take our lining and we are going to put our zipper panel with the right side facing up with our lining of the bottom of the gusset also right side facing up. And mine measures the exact width. Sometimes the width of zippers, depending if you're using a number 3 or a number 5, can be a little bit wider. So the 5 that I have fits perfectly, but there can be some variations. So if you need to trim, you definitely can do that. Okay, and then I'm just clipping this into place on both sides. So again, it's the zipper right side facing up and our lining right side facing up. And I am clipping the edges, and I'm going to take this to the machine and just baste across both sides to hold that in place before we put the rest of our gusset on. Okay, so we have just basted on the lining. So now we are going to put our exterior zipper gusset right side facing down. And again, they should line up perfectly. If you need to trim, you can definitely do that. And I am going to attach both sides, and then I'm going to sew this at the seam allowance given in the pattern. And again, it's right sides together. So if we're looking like this, here's our zipper tape and our gusset is right side down. This is going to flip over. Okay, so I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch the left and right hand side at the given seam allowance. Okay, so I have just finished stitching across both sides. So now I am going to flip it so that way our zipper gusset is on the top, the rest of the gusset is on the bottom, and our lining is sitting wrong sides together, also on the bottom. And what I'm going to do is, while I'm still at the machine, I am going to top stitch across the sides here. Alright, so I have just top stitched across both sides. So now we need to find our centers. You can baste stitch this in place, like go around here.
I find that sometimes when I do that, I get like a weird lump. So my preference is to just ease it in as I am attaching my gusset to the main lining. So I am lining up my side seams here and pulling straight out, and that is going to give me my center. And I'm actually going to mark it by snipping it a tiny bit. So I don't want the blue marker to run and see it on the cotton. And I'm marking the center top. And we're doing this for both sides. So again, I'm repeating the same thing over here. The top is a little bit easier to mark because our lining is already basted together. The bottom, that's a bit more tricky. But I just kind of pinch it and then use my left hand to really extend it down. Okay, and then this is the other important part. We have to match our centers from the top and the bottom. And actually, I'm going to clip them to hold them and help me, because some people might think the center would be where our D-ring is, and that is not the case. So it's very important to find your centers this way, because if you are trying to match up the points using that seam where the D-ring is, your gusset is not going to fit properly. I'm doing the same thing for this other side. And you can see where it's like curling up a little bit, so definitely taking my time to make sure it is straight, and that way I can be accurate. It's very important when attaching the gusset that you're accurate. Okay, and then we also need to find the centers. So I wrote the pattern so it hangs like a diamond, and that's because I like the wristlet coming off one of the strap coming off one of the points. So I'm going to find my centers of each of the corners. You could also make your bag like more square, like this, and find your centers this way. So it's up to you how you want to attach your gusset. But I like the wristlet version hanging from near the corner. So again, you can snip them or mark them with something that you'll be able to see. These aren't the sharpest scissors. So for this, I'm actually going to grab this silver marking pen. I think it will be a bit easier. And I'm just going to mark in the seam allowance on the water resistant canvas. And I just find mine by folding in half. And you're going to repeat that for both exterior pieces. Okay, so now that I have found my centers, I'm going to turn this so it's wrong side facing out. So I see my purple lining, and I'm going to start attaching it to my exterior. So I am going to start with the top part that has my zipper, and I am going to put the exterior to exterior. So I'm matching up my center points. I have one marked with marker and then the other snipped. So I like to do corner and then the next like opposite corner. And you can see I have the little snip marks. So I'm going to clip all four corners first. And then you can see here, this is where it starts to get a little bit tricky because it's not sewn together. So I found my slits. I have found where my center is. And then the last one. It's a little tricky with the phone in my way. And these, you might have a little bit of wiggle room. So once I have them clipped, then I'm going to take my scissors and cut into my gusset just about 1/4 of an inch, or maybe even 1/8. You don't want to go past your seam allowance, but by cutting little snips in, it will allow this to ease around the corners. So it's it's a little bit tricky trying to be so accurate on the camera, but take your time, go ahead, add the snips. And you could do this before you attach, but because I marked them with a little snip, if I added all the snips, then you wouldn't really be able to see. So once you have your 4 corners, then you are going to clip the rest of your bag. If you marked everything centered, it should come together fairly easy. And it is a snug fit. The hardest part is going to be where the gusset is, where we didn't baste it together, just because you have more pieces moving. And another thing that makes this side a little bit easier compared to when we do the next is we don't have anything sewn here, so we can actually stick our hand through to help center and straighten everything out. So after I get my 4 corners, you can see I like to do the center of each flat side, and then you can continue going around adding as many clips as you deem necessary. If you like to staple, this would be a great place to staple your gusset together. So I'm going to continue making sure this is aligned and adding clips, and then I'll pop back on when I'm ready for the next step. Okay, so now that I have this all clipped, I'm going to take it in the machine. I prefer to sew with my gusset up, and you are going to sew all the way around at the given seam allowance, backstitching at the beginning and the end. I have just attached the gusset. It's a little tricky because of the foam. So what I do now is, before I move on to any other steps, I pop this so it is right sides facing out. And I check to see if I'm okay with how it looks. So you can see right here, I didn't catch that. So I'm going to go back over that area. And then for the most part, I think the rest of it looks okay. There's a little bit where it is creased here, but I'm not really too worried about it. What I am going to do is flip this back, because I know this is the part here. So I'm going to go back and catch where I missed that. And the other thing that I do is, you can see where like the orange is poking out. I do trim it so it is even. So I'm also going to do that as well. Okay, so I have gone over back where that didn't catch, and now it does. So we are good to move on. Now what you want to do is open up your zipper, because we're going to need to be able to turn this right side out. So do not forget to open up your zipper. And we are going to repeat the same exact step just for the other side. And we are going to attach it the same exact way. We're going to sew it the same exact way. This side is a little bit trickier just because we have this side already sewed on, so we can't stick our hand through there. We have to go through the zipper to help you align everything. But again, just take your time, making sure that you are lining everything up as best as you can. There is a little bit of wiggle room and forgiveness with gussets. It's kind of one of those practice makes perfect things. And as you can tell, like even I just had trouble with it. So don't get discouraged. Also, like, it doesn't need to look pretty. If you see here, like this does not look pretty, but it's all going to get hidden underneath the binding anyways. So for me, as long as it is attached and sturdy, that is the most important part, right? So I'm going to continue attaching this and sew it on. I have just attached my second side. I've already turned it out right side out to make sure that everything looks okay or I'm happy with it. So now our next step would be binding, and you want to make sure that you trim all like the loose threads, especially if you're doing cotton woven, because we are binding. You don't want anything showing through. I did not have enough of the purple for both sides, so I'm going to use black. But since I'm using black, I'm going to switch out my thread. So before I bind, I'm going to finish my wristlet strap. So I have already folded these to the center, or ironed them to the center. And so now I'm going to clip them in place. This is the 4-fold method. My orange and green pieces weren't exactly 1 inch wide, so that's why I do see a little bit of the green on one side. And I'm going to make this so that way you do not have like an end that you have to fold over. It's going to be hidden. So as I'm folding this, what I'm going to do is slide my lobster clasp on and put it to the center. Okay, so I have just clipped my strap. I have the lobster claw in the center, and how we're going to make it so there's no end to fold over and make it like seamless is we are going to open up our ends and put them right sides together and clip them in place. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and just sew across that top end here. I'm probably going to do about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's just to sew those two together so we can hide the seam. Okay, so I have just sewed my seam across. So now what I'm going to do is open up that seam allowance. So it's like butterflied open. And I am going to now fold that within my strap for that 4-fold method. And clip the rest of it together. Like I said, I didn't cut mine exactly 1 inch on each color, so it's a little bit like it's right here. You'll see both colors, So now what I'm going to do is, now that I have this clipped, I am going to top stitch around each side, and I have the removable plate, so I'm going to do that. And I usually start and stop where the seam is, which I'm looking for right here. So I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and I like to start on the side that has the openings here, because that is harder to keep straight. So I'm going to top stitch down one side and move the pole or the lobster claw out of the way, and then repeat for the other side. Okay, so sewing it that way creates a completely seamless strap. So now what I like to do is, this is a little bit thick, it doesn't bend exactly on that point. So I like to move my clasp down to that area where it's a little bit thicker, and then I'm just going to sew a line of top stitching going across to hold it in place. And you could also do a rivet here if you wanted. I like that if I'm using vinyl, but because this is cotton woven, I think I prefer the stitch. And then I'm just trimming my threads. And now we have completed our wristlet strap. So I am going to switch out my thread for black thread so I can do the binding. Okay, so we are on to our final step, doing the binding. So I'm going to use fold over elastic. I really like using it because it's just quicker than the double fold bias tape. This is about 3/4 of an inch. I do have it in my shop. I cut it slightly smaller, like I kind of measured around and then cut it slightly smaller, because I am going to put the two sides, right sides together, and sew across the top. That way they are connected, and I will be able to stretch them out around the edge and just kind of make it easier for me. Fold over elastic is easier to sew, in my opinion, when it's stretched. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the machine and just sew about a 1/4 inch seam allowance across each end. I have just finished sewing the edge, so I have butterflied open the seam, and now I'm going to take my bag and I'm going to pick anywhere to start. I prefer to put it closer to where my zipper is. I feel like it's less likely to be able to be seen, even though that seam gets pretty well hidden. And now I'm going to stretch this around the bag and clip the bottom side. And I cut the elastic slightly smaller, so that way it will stretch. So I'm going to clip all 4 sides. If you really wanted to, you could find the centers of the top and bottom. I am just doing my best guess as I am putting it around. With the fold over elastic, I find that it's very forgiving. This is only 3/4 inch, so 1 inch is a little bit thicker. It's harder to find, and it will probably hide your seams a little bit better, but this 3/4 does fine. So I am just going to clip all the way around, just like we did when we were attaching our side panels to the gusset. And then once I'm done clipping, we are going to top stitch this in place. Okay, so I have clipped it everywhere. Now I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to sew it with the gusset side facing up. And I am going to top stitch all the way around the fold over elastic. I am using black thread. That way, if I don't catch everything, it blends in, or if I need to go over a part. And we're gonna backstitch at the beginning and the end. I have just finished up the binding on that side. So now we're just going to repeat the same exact process for the other. I've just finished up the binding on this side. So now it's the moment of truth. Let's turn it right side out. Because it's cotton woven, it is so easy to turn. And make sure I'm poking out all the corners on both sides. And I think it came out pretty good. I could, because this is cotton woven, I could give it a press with the iron. I don't have to worry about it melting anything. Here is our inside. It looks great with the binding. The fold over elastic saved us a lot of time. And let's zip it up. And I always attach my wristlet on the side where the zipper closes. And you can see, I love it as a wristlet because it hangs at this diagonal off my wrist. Let's see if I can zoom out. There we go. All right, so I just need to press it, make it look a little bit nicer. All right, so we have just finished the cotton woven version of the Willow Wristlet. I love how with this pattern, you can make this so many different ways. If you decide to make it, please join my Facebook group and post a picture or tag me on Instagram or TikTok. I'd love to see what you make. And again, thank you to the Marathon Sewciety for everyone who's sewing up my pattern today and for featuring it for the month of June. Please make sure that you are checking every video out, and I'll see you later. Thank you. Bye.